Okay guys, offsets versus redraws. If you think you've seen me, if you've watched any of our videos before and you go, I've heard this bloke talking about this before, why is he rattling on about it again? I'm talking about it again because we still find when clients come in to see us that they use the terms offset and redraw interchangeably. And it's important they understand that you understand the difference between the two. So this video, what I'm hoping to get across is the clear difference between a loan facility with a redraw feature and a loan facility that has an offset account. Over here we've got a loan facility that's got a $100,000 balance, okay? And this loan facility has a redraw feature attached to it, right? So within it. Over here, I've also got another loan facility exactly like this one, $100,000 balance. It also has a redraw feature within it. But attached to this particular loan is an offset account. So fundamentally, that's the key difference that I want you to understand, is that an offset account or a loan with an offset account is the offset's a separate account. One account, a loan account, here two accounts, one loan account and one bank account. Now effectively, how do they operate? Like, what's the difference between them in operation? So let me use an example. You get 10,000 bucks from your tax return back. We're at the end of the financial year, and you go and dump $10,000 into here, and that reduces your loan balance down to $90,000. Okay, so you will now be charged the next month. Your loan repayment will have an interest charge on 90,000. You won't have interest calculated on 100, you'll have it on 90. And within that loan facility, you'll be able to go in and click a button on internet banking, and you'll be able to go and access and redraw that $10,000 back out of the loan facility. When you do that, the balance would go back up to $100,000. But that's the amount that you've got in redraw. If you had a loan facility that had an offset account attached to it, you've got a couple of options. You could go and do exactly the same thing and dump it into the loan facility, and you'd be in exactly the same boat. Or if you went and put the $10,000 into the offset account, what you fundamentally have is you still got a loan balance of 100 grand, right? It hasn't come down, whereas this one came down to 90, but you've put $10,000 into the offset. Now, when the time comes to charge interest on this loan, interest is charged the same way. You are charged interest on $100,000 minus the $10,000. So you're only charged interest on $90,000. So you'd be right to sit there and say, well, if I'm getting charged interest exactly the same way, and I'm saving interest in exactly the same way, how would I make the determination between either one of those structures? And it's a really good question. The first thing that you need to take into consideration, and we'll address this in the next video, is what suits you best, okay, in terms of how you manage money. Now, in both situations, an offset account is sold as an interest saving feature. Now, that's all well and good, but it's also a convenient a feature that's sold as convenience as well. And unfortunately, those two don't actually marry up together. So just because it's more convenient to have your $10,000 sitting in an offset account as opposed to probably sitting in a redraw account where it's a bit hidden and you've got to draw it back out, just because it's convenient, if you use that money, well, you lose the interest saving benefit. So for an offset account to really work, you need to ensure that you keep the money in it. So what we've found is where if it's just talking about saving interest on a loan, quite often it's just as beneficial to take out a loan facility, no additional frills or costs associated with it, that's got access to a redraw facility. Now again, depends upon your personal circumstances, but for most of us, if we spend what we earn and that's the account where you're going to get, you've got easy access to, sometimes this structure won't necessarily work if you're trying to save interest. The second thing to consider is not all offsets are created equal. And so what I mean by that is, in this situation, there are offset accounts that are only known as partial offsets. So instead of being able to offset the full $10,000, some of them might only allow you to offset $7,000 or 70%. So you would be paying interest on $93,000 as opposed to paying interest on $90,000. Obviously, in that circumstance, that would fall second to the effectiveness of this facility if your primary goal is to save interest. The third, and something that we'll address in a further video, is tax deductibility. It's the biggest difference, it's probably the biggest thing you need to think about when you're trying to weigh up whether you take on a loan that's got an offset account attached to it or just a standard loan with redraw. It's the potential future tax implications that could come in. So we'll also address that in a future video. But I hope that clears up the fact that an offset account is certainly separate and distinct from a loan facility that has a redraw feature.